Welcome to Empowering the Working Mom podcast, the place where working moms find inspiration, support, and practical advice to thrive in their professional and personal lives while aligning it all with God. I'm your host, Latika Vines, a fellow working mom on a mission to empower you to embrace your God-given strength and resilience of balancing work and life while leading you to align it all with God. Twice monthly, we'll delve into topics that matter to you, from time management, advancing your career, mental health, your relationship with God, and so much more. Get ready for insightful interviews with inspiring working moms, experts, and thought leaders who'll share their wisdom, their experiences, their prayers, and their Tabitha moments. Because together, we can break down barriers, defy stereotypes, and rewrite the narrative of being a working mom. So get ready for your empowering moment. Welcome to the Empowering Working Mom podcast. Hey, working mom, welcome to this episode of Empowering the Working Mom podcast. I am so excited that you are here with us today. I'm your host, Latika Vines, and I am here to give you an empowering moment to help you take the initiative to align your work-life balance and your career vision with God. You know, this season we're diving into something every working mom needs more of, but really prioritizes, and that's rest. Now, to help us unpack this very essential topic, I'm joined by our guest, Brittany Elliott, who is passionate about the topic of self-care, specifically for you, working moms. But before we introduce our guest, if this topic resonates with you, share it with the first working mom who comes to your mind. And don't forget to check out the show notes with all the important updates within our community. Now, are you excited about Brittany? Because I know I am. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Brittany. She is a self-care and mom life coach. She is an author. Oh my goodness, you're going to love her new book. And she's a podcast host, she's a speaker, and she is the creator of the Back to You in 5, which is a collection of resources designed to help you prioritize your needs and cultivate a sustainable self-care lifestyle that helps you reclaim joy in your motherhood experience. She empowers working moms to restructure their approach to motherhood so they can prioritize their needs and practice self-care in a meaningful way, so they can reclaim joy in their motherhood experience. So profound. Now, through her podcast, What Self-Care Looks Like, Brittany addresses the unspoken challenges of motherhood and how to overcome them. So amazing. If you have not listened to her, definitely check out her podcast. It is available across all podcast platforms, so you definitely want to check it out. Now, her membership program, Reconnect, helps working moms like you build connections with like-minded women and access a library of resources to support your motherhood journey, including live workshops, group, and one-on-one coaching. She does an amazing work for working moms, and I'm excited to have her with us today. So without further ado, please let's welcome Brittany to the Empowering the Working Mom podcast. Brittany, I'm excited that you are here with us. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Thank you, Latika. I appreciate you having me. I'm happy to be here. And to our working moms listening, hello to you. Um, like Latika said, my name is Brittany. I'm a mother of one. By the time this airs, my daughter will be 7. We're approaching her 7th birthday. I'm married. I work full time. I run a business. I just published a book. Um, just really this work in helping women reclaim joy in their motherhood experience has truly led me to create resources that I didn't know that I would create. But it's just really been through just digging in with women and asking, what are you struggling with? What is really your barrier to taking care of yourself, and why haven't you been considering your needs? Has really led me to say, hey, we need a method for women to be able to prioritize their needs without feeling guilty, without feeling like they are neglecting their children. And so I am hoping that I am doing that work to bridge the gap to say, hey, you're out here doing what you need to do for your family, and we see you. And I really want you to take the time to do something for yourself because that is just as important.
Absolutely. And the work you do is so important. It's so important. And it is amazing that through your personal journey of motherhood, you're able to empower, you're able to help so many working moms just like you who have similar stories to you, to help them understand that one, they're not crazy.
Right.
Because you go through this and you're like, am I the only one that feels this way? Am I the only one that is experiencing this? And no, you're not. You have a whole community of people just like you who have the same feelings, who've experienced the same things, and you are there showing up for those individuals. So I want to say thank you to you for the work that you are doing because it is so important. So important. And so, with you being the self-care expert that you are, we're in this season of rest. Can you tell me, give me a definition of what you think rest means for us as working moms?
Yes, I would say that rest is when you are intentionally sitting down or laying down for your leisure and to re-energize. So sometimes that does look like actually sleeping or taking a nap. And I think one thing we really do miss with rest, how we miss the mark, is we are not sleeping enough at night. And so that impacts how we move throughout our day and how much more rest we may need during the day. But also, so many of us working moms, we just are so ambitious and we want to be productive. And if we're not moving around, creating something, cleaning something, doing something, we feel like we're not adding value or bringing value or doing enough. And so for us to just sit down and read a book, sit down or and listen to music, sit down in solitude, it really hurts us at first because the muscle is just not flexed. Our rest muscle is just not very strong. So I always just say, just sit and just do something that specifically is not for any type of outcome beyond you just having joy or just energizing. And that tends to help working moms, especially hustling moms who are out here doing side hustles and things. It'll stop you from sitting down and saying, okay, well, since I'm resting, I will create some content for my business. It's like, well, you're not because your brain now is working. You're going to be more tired when you get up than you were when you sat down. So just always bringing it back to sitting down or lying down and doing something that's for your leisure or that you know will energize you.
That's a really good point. In COVID, I recognized that I never sat down. And so 2 years ago, I actually went to my family and I was like, listen, everybody has a room in this house. Everybody. Everybody has a room. Everybody has their own thing. I believe I need that space too. And so we turned our living room into my room, if you will. And so that is the room where I sit. So we brought these special chairs and, it's open. My living room is open. But it is the room where I call it my sanctuary. And I also call it the music room. So it was funny when you said, to sit down and listen to music because I actually sit in the room and I listen to music. And, for me, it's been, again, my sanctuary. because I'm able to sit and reset and refocus. I don't eat in that room. I'm very, very intentional in that room. But it's so refreshing. And for the last 2 years, it's been a game changer, mentally, spiritually, physically, for me. So yeah, that that right there is so, so, so important. Do you have like a place in your house where you can sit and just be Brittany?
I have created just spaces where anywhere I can do that. I honestly have really adopted this lifestyle of self-care so that no matter where I am, I can really tap into a restful mindset and tap into my solitude. Prior to that, though, like before we moved into this house that we bought, which was we actually bought our home in 2020, we had just a two-bedroom apartment, like duplex. We were just kind of like right on top of each other. Our daughter was young, and I would just sit. I would just sit wherever I could go. I a lot of times would actually sit in my daughter's room, which help me feel calm sometimes because for some reason they don't tell you when you have a kid. They don't really use their room for a couple years. And so I was able to use that space. There was a rocking chair in there. So I found a lot of solitude in that. And now I just kind of tap into it where I can and just, I always see any chair or any open space, any floor space as an invitation to sit. My eyes kind of just gravitate to that. And so it's helped me keep things less messy too. Like this chair back here, I typically will just sit and rest in it, and I'll only do work like in my work chair. So that if my sister, my daughter comes in and she's like, "Hey, can we read with me, after you record an episode or after you do your work?" I can transition, even if not out of this room, I can transition into a space that's designed for rest. So there is a mindset that comes with it too.
That's so good. Thank you for sharing that you are intentional about it. That's so important. That's so important. And so on that, being intentional, what is self-care? We all have our own definitions of self-care, but what is self-care and how do we reconnect or prioritize self-care? Because you mentioned how intentional you are, that it's not just a one spot that you go to, that you are intentional about wherever you are, you prioritize, you're intentional about self-care. So what does that mean and how do we prioritize that on a day-to-day basis?
Sure. So I always say that self-care is defined as practicing the protection of your well-being and happiness. And that looks different for everybody, right? What makes you happy and what makes me happy are going to be different. But in practice, us making sure that anytime we're doing something, we can reflect it back to, is this something that is going to benefit my well-being? Is this something that is going to make me happy? And if it's something that you have to do out of your obligations, I say the soonest that you can get to something that's going to make you happy, you should, so that it balances you out. And for working moms, I always say you should begin focusing on like three areas, like mind, body, spirit. And so for your mind, having some way of doing a brain dump. So that can be journaling in an actual like paper book journal, which is why I offer journals as resources through Back to You in 5. You could also do journaling through an app on your phone. You can just get scratch paper and journal. You can put post-its around in your office. Just you have to have some method of getting all the things that are going on in here because there's so much for us, getting it out of you. You can even do like audio recordings, if you are comfortable listening to them back. Some people don't like the sound of their own voice, but if you can get over that hump, I recommend that. For your body, I say do some type of movement for 5 to 15 minutes. Walking, running, stretching, lifting weights. I mean, this can just be in your home. I did a little workout this morning in my home, nothing crazy, no need for equipment. You can just move your body because our body needs to be reminded that it's here sometimes. Our body is actually created to be mobile, not to be sitting all the time. And a lot of us who are working have more of those like sedentary style jobs where we're just sitting in front of the screen. And so like your body kind of like curls into itself. So doing movement where you can just be big and just be bold in your movement, even dancing is very important. And then for your spirit, I always say some type of prayer or meditation and just having that intentional solitude. So when you're thinking about your self-care, I only want you to focus on just 5 minutes of an activity that impacts your mind, your body, or your spirit. That will start getting you comfortable with saying, what else do I need? So that you can start really truly protecting your well-being and happiness.
I love that. I love that. Mind, body, and spirit. Absolutely incredible. Absolutely. So we have rest being, intentional, self-care, and it's going to look different. You and I have different, methods, and we have different schedules. And so how we fit in self-care in our individual lives is going to look very different. But prioritizing it, mind, body, and spirit is pivotal for all of us. So with that, knowing that we have to be intentional, knowing that we have to prioritize it, we also have this thing that's lingering around called the mental load. The mental load that includes all the things you talk about, that brain dump, all of the things that it's just floating in our brain right now. Of as soon as we get up in the morning, we have to make sure the kitchen is clean before we leave the house. We have to make sure the dishes are done. Oh, when I get to the office, I have to make sure I do this first. Or I have to go see this person before we have our next meeting. Like, and the list goes on and on, all in our brain. And we're holding this in our brain. So with that, how do we manage all that's here? How do you manage all that you have in your brain? And what tips or strategies can you give to help moms understand that, one, it's okay
Yeah.
that you're not going crazy because your brain is going 500 miles an hour. But how do we manage that, especially now as so many of us have to readjust our schedules, or we're making career moves, or just looking at the current political climate and how things are changing every single day? How do we manage that at the same time prioritizing self-care and rest?
That's such a great question. And it has so many layers because the mental load, that invisible labor that we have in times where we are calm and connected in mind, body, and spirit, it is very productive. We can use our mental load to really help us drive the ship of our lives. But when all of that other stuff is out of sync, that invisible labor starts to break you down. So you can have some seasons where you knowing when people have to be at the doctor, when the kids need new socks and need new shoes, when the cars need to go in for inspection and oil changes. You can have a season where all that really inspires you and makes you feel like, oh, I'm getting it done. I am holding all the plates. I'm juggling everything. This feels great. I am in my glow up. I'm in my moment. I am mothering. I am adulting. I am woman. Hear me roar. And then you'll have other seasons where you're just like, if my husband asks me where his keys are, I'm gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose because they're not my keys. That's none of my business. So we're always living in this balance of when is it too much and when is it just enough? And so your self-care definitely goes hand in hand with that, like with your body. When you are moving your body, you get to activate your mind and you can kind of slow down how quickly things come to your brain. And then the same with, the journaling, the mind and body part. So when you're writing things out, you can say, okay, why do I keep thinking about the kids' teeth? When's the last time that they were at the dentist? Like what do I want to do when I get into the office? So if you commute into work, you can use that time to start laying out your day. If it doesn't, if you feel like once you get there, you'll be too overwhelmed, Or if you feel like you need to be calm when you enter the office, you can use that time to listen to music or listen to a podcast. So I created maybe in 2024 a mental load audit that I now offer. It's a free audit that you download to sit with you and your spouse to go through, okay, who is actually carrying more of the load? You know, who is making sure that there are diapers in the diaper bag? Who is actually making sure that all the annual appointments are planned? Who is thinking about family vacation and how much we'll need to budget for that? Who knows where the favorite stuffy is at all times? We sometimes think about the invisible labor just as maybe where the keys are or the foresight of who needs to do laundry or, oh, there's something that just got washed and now it needs to go to the dryer. But the invisible labor is actually that forecasting that we do that we really can't stop ourselves from doing. And it's not something that you can exactly delegate. However, you can make the invisible labor more visible to yourself and to your partner so that you can understand why it is that you are so overwhelmed. Sometimes when we're overwhelmed, we just want to know why. Like, why am I so tired? You know, like, why is my brain just like going crazy? Why don't I have the energy for this? If you can look back at a resource like the audit and say, okay, well, this last quarter of the year, all this was going on. I mean, we just came out of a hectic holiday season and wham bam into like the chaos of 2025. So you are tired for a good reason. Being able to look back and say, okay, this is everything that's going on. This is why I've been feeling this way. When you have that justification, believe it or not, it helps you to be able to say, okay, I am managing my load and understanding that you don't have to swing at every pitch. Everything that comes into your mind does not require an action. And so when you're able to put it out on paper and see it, you can say, okay, this thought is coming into my mind because I'm just that type of personality. I'm always forecasting. I'm thinking about what's going on in October. That doesn't matter today, though. Brittany, you can let that go and give yourself permission, and then you can move about it. But again, you have to be always considering, is this going to protect my well-being and happiness to do that? And if the answer is yes, then that's a really good method to help you manage that mental load.
That's so good. I think I almost fell out my chair when you were talking about your husband's keys. So I think all of us need a moment of silence on that one. Because that right there,
Every
it's,
time, every time. I call
uh-huh.
it being the GPS. You're the GPS for everyone's keys, wallets, the stuffy. You need to know how people like their sandwiches, what type of cheese, what type of bread, how they like their bacon cooked, all that stuff. No job description has that on
No,
there.
no,
So
no,
that's us.
no, mm-mm, no. And it's so interesting you said that because there's places in my house where you put the keys. There's a storage place for everything, so there should be no reason. Um, but what I realized is, like you said, that's not my problem. That's not my business. So I'm no longer getting worked up over you can't find your keys or you can't find your purse or you can't find your book bag or, wear the shoes to I I'm not getting worked up about it because that's not my business, you know? And
I bought the
so
shoes. I already bought the shoes. I
yeah,
did my job.
exactly. Exactly. And for many of us who have the husband and the kids, and if, and a lot of us are also caring for elderly parents or, siblings or things like that. And so there's so much that we talk about, that invisible mental load. And sometimes, a lot of times, every day, it's you being intentional about what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How am I going to make sure that I ground or I center myself? And that starts with being or prioritizing that self care, that rest. And for me, that's the first thing in the morning. As soon as I get up, I have to prioritize that rest. And my husband told me years ago when I started it, he said, when you do not get up and you take care of yourself first, you are not good for anybody else in this house. And so he recognized that it was important, but also essential for me to be able to be the kind and loving wife and mother that I need to be for my family by just being intentional about that. So that's such a great point you brought out about that invisible load, managing it, but also that tip of doing that brain dump, and that audit is so it's amazing that you do it with the both partners, both spouses, because oftentimes the other doesn't see what the other one is doing, you know. And so by both being there and seeing, oh, you thought about that 12 years in 12 months in advance? I didn't know that, and so that's so, so, so good. And this is why you're needed. This is why you're needed. Because that is so important for so many. And I'm sure once those audits are completed, that couple now probably, I'm going to say 100%, is more in love with each other because they see the other person now. So not only are you allowing the other one to see what they're carrying invisibly, but now they're able to care for each other more than they have been before. That's pivotal.
Yeah,
That is pivotal.
I think that especially with, social media and things like that, the thought is if I dump all this on my partner, specifically like the primary caregiver is the one who carries more of the mental load. That doesn't make them better or less than. That's just how it goes. And we think that once we dump it all, the other person is just going to be able to pick it up. Well, the truth of the matter is, it may not be their role. It may not even be appropriate for them to do it. And I think that when you step into that acceptance of if it is you, you have to say, not how can I put more of this onto my partner, but how can I speak up when I need help and support so that they can actually support me through this and we can all get it together. Because I'm going to tell you something. My husband's not going to be thinking of things 12 months in advance. It's not in his nature. He's not going to forecast. And it's not his role to do it. I tell him and I support him, hey, these are the things that need to get done. It's still on him to do the thing. And there are things that he does for me that I just don't have the bandwidth to be thinking of. And he makes sure it gets done too. But when you're always only thinking about your load, like you said, you are not thinking about your partner. You're just thinking, oh, he keeps asking where his keys are because he doesn't care to know where his keys are. Not that he's thinking, do I have this, that, and the other? Because when I leave here before I get to work, I have to stop here. And this is everything I have to do in my work day. So while he's preparing for his day, he has forgotten just that quickly where he put his keys. Or the thing that I love to do is I move my husband's keys because he put them where they don't go instead of in that little key hickey do bin that we have. And then he's like, goes to grab his keys, but I've moved them. So there's just like we're living in each other's orbit, but we're not in each other's mind. And so that's why I think always doing these exercises with each other to make those things more visible, or just to say, like, hey, how does your mind work? Like, when I say this, what do you think we have to do next? And then, like, your partner will tell you. And it's not to be to scold them or be upset with them. You need to know, like, the order in which your partner thinks, like order of operations, so that you can say, okay, well, this is why they're not doing that, because that's not what came next on their list. And so let's help each other and fill each other's gaps.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, that's a beautiful story because it reminds me of Tabitha in the Bible. And Tabitha is a woman in the Bible. She's mentioned in Acts. where she was a servant of her community and she was providing and doing all that was needed for her community. But one day, while she was serving, she became ill and she died. But because of her good works, the Apostle Peter came and he resurrected her, and she became well, and she was able to go on and continue to do what she was doing in her community. But like Tabitha, I believe that we as working moms are just like her. We work and we work and we serve. And then one day we become physically, emotionally, and spiritually sick. Now, was there a time in your life where you were like Tabitha and you became physically, emotionally, or spiritually sick and you needed a resurrection?
Yes, so it happened to me twice, specifically in motherhood. Once was 2020, like 2 years into motherhood, when I felt like, oh my gosh, I'm so lost. I don't know anything about myself anymore. And I just felt like I was just in this stark place of who am I beyond this vessel of giving. And then maybe 6 months or 12 months after that, me even starting my journey, I like lost my hair. Like a chunk of my hair just fell out. And I was like, okay, something's going on because my body is fighting me on this. And so what I learned from that in comparison to Tabitha was I was doing all of this stuff and showing up for everybody, but I wasn't really truly doing it from the heart of service. I was doing it out of obligation. And I think that anytime you feel that what you're doing is not a choice, you will start to feel burnt out and you will feel like entitled to all these things. And that's how I felt. So I felt like I was in my Tabitha moment, but I really wasn't. I was more so feeling like I do all of this in service of people. I'm always there for the people who need me, this, that, and the other. Where is everybody when I need support? Not realizing that I wasn't happy to serve the other people. I felt like I was expected to. So once I shifted and was like, you know what? I want to be happy about my acts of service and acts of kindness. I want to be excited to help other people. How can I get there? Um,
Wow, that's incredible because a lot of us are stuck in that, stuck in, I'm doing this out of obligation. I have no other choice. Um, and oftentimes, that's where the overcommitment comes in. And that overcommitment then turns into the burnout. And, um, it's interesting because one of the things that I had to realize just recently is the art of why. Why am I doing it? Um, and what was really helpful was Simon Sinek's book, The Start of Why, and is there a purpose to what I'm doing? Because if there's not, then there's no need, there's no drive. There's no reason for me to do this. There's no reason for me to carry on. And if I am carrying on now, all the bitterness and the resentment and all those other emotions are coming in. And those emotions now are turning into those habits. And so I'm doing everything relentlessly. Like I don't want to do it, but I'm doing it. So I'm not really doing it. I'm not giving it my all. It's not A+ product. It's subpar. Like, so I really appreciate you sharing that because so many of us experience that um, and don't understand why we're in that space. So I really appreciate you sharing that you were there, but you had to come out of it to understand I don't need to be here.
Right.
I don't need to be here. So that is so commendable, and definitely a lesson for all of us to ask ourselves, to do a self audit. Hey, what are you doing? Why are you doing it? Are you doing it out of obligation? Do you have a choice? And are you part of that choice? Are you part of the option? And if it doesn't serve you, then what do you do from there? Wow, but shout out to your husband, my husband, to all the husbands out there that see us and are supportive and say, hey, you have an option. You have an option. You don't have to do that just because you saw grandma and aunt and mom and great grandma do that doesn't mean that you have to do it too. So we appreciate our husbands.
Yes,
We really do. We really appreciate him. But I appreciate you, Brittany. You have been so phenomenal, just helping us to reconnect and reprioritize self-care, while also understanding that that invisible mental load is real. However, there's ways that we can manage it, and we don't have to do it alone. So we really appreciate you being here and sharing with us your expertise and just your vulnerability with us today. Where can our community learn more about you and just stay connected with what you are doing with Back to You in 5? Amen. You do. You do deserve it. Well, please be sure to check out the show notes because that will have all of Brittany's contact information so you can stay up with her and all that she is doing. And please, this topic resonates with you, please check out her book because she really digs into self-care. After all, she is the expert. And I personally got my copy a couple weeks ago, and she's just remarkable at what you do, at what she does. So definitely get your copy of her book. You will not be disappointed. And I want to thank all of you for joining us for this episode. Remember, God is reminding you in this season that you need rest and you have to rest in Him. And to do that, He gives us a simple command. And in Psalms chapter 4, verse 8, it says, "In peace I will lay down and sleep. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety." God is telling us that when we rest in Him, we will be safe. All the things that we have going on, all the things that we see, that we hear, He will give us safety only when we rest in Him. So rest in Him today, my dear sister. Join us next time as we continue this topic. And until then, may God bless you and may you rest in Him always. Take care. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Empowering the Working Mom podcast. As you reflect on the empowering moments, remember that you are not alone in this journey. It takes a whole village to be a working mom. Discover how big your village is by joining fellow working moms in our private Empowering Working Mom online community, where we continue this conversation and support each other every step of the way. Until next time, you got this because God has you.